Could Jesus be my great, great, great granddaddy? I'm sure most of you remember the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Probably most of you read the book and most of you have seen the movie. Now, there was a lot that annoyed me about that book, but nothing more than one of the central themes of the story. Namely, this idea that there could be a single special bloodline descended from Jesus. Now, let's be clear immediately. I'm not annoyed or offended by this because the idea of Jesus having children is somehow unthinkable. It's entirely plausible, though unproven and unprovable, that he did have children. What irritates me is the sloppy thinking behind this idea of a single bloodline that has been preserved through the centuries. I'm annoyed because if any one person alive today is descended from Jesus, then the chances are that just about everyone alive today is also descended from Jesus. This is just a question of mathematics. The further back we go in time, the more ancestors we have. This increases exponentially by a factor of two. So I have two parents, well, most of us do, four grandparents, eight great grandparents, and so on. By the time I go back 20 generations, I have potentially 1,048,576 ancestors. This may be fewer because I might be able to trace back to a particular ancestor through several lineages. When I go back 40 generations, I have this many ancestors. The entire world population today is only around 8 billion. Back 40 generations, let's say 2,000 years ago, at roughly 20 years per generation on average, in other words, to around the time of Christ, the entire world population was probably somewhere between 100 million and 300 million. This means that I need at least 3,365 times more ancestors than there were people alive at the time. In other words, I'm descended from many of these people via multiple bloodlines. There is therefore a very high probability that Jesus is among my ancestors, if indeed he had any children at all. If he didn't have any children, of course, there is no bloodline. In all likelihood, he's my ancestor several times over via several bloodlines. This probability is certainly greater if my ancestry at that time is more likely to be from Europe and the Middle East than, say, from Africa or Asia or the Americas. Of course, it's equally likely that I'm descended from Judas and Pontius Pilate and Herod and Caligula, though probably not from Caligula's horse. Now, it's entirely possible that Jesus had no children and therefore has no living descendants. But if he did have children, well, it's really all or nothing after the passage of so many generations. Finally, let's suppose that by some sustained miracle, a single bloodline of Jesus had been preserved. So Jesus had one child, his child had one child, their child had one child, and so on down through the line. Even so, that person will also, in all likelihood, also be descended from Judas and Pontius Pilate and Herod and Caligula, or else extremely inbred, with two heads and a tendency to hum show tunes backwards. So if she, whoever that character was in the Da Vinci Code, I can't remember their name, if she is indeed a direct descendant of Jesus, then I'll either be saying to her, "G'day, sister," or else wiping the dribble from her mouth's